Welcome to CrossYoga and welcome to this slow session. It's an honor that you tuned in. My name is Ria. I'm the host of this channel. And today our theme will be fear, or letting go of fear. So welcome on your mat. Find a comfortable seated position, whatever it looks like. And the sitting bones reach down towards the floor. Relax your thighs. Sit tall with a little tension in your belly and abs. And close your eyes. Tune in on your breath. And it's not because you have to know a lot of fear to watch this video. I think fear is something that all of us know in different variations. And I think the root of fear enters in already in the early days. Just listen to the story from Genesis. So God created Adam and Eve. Maybe you know that story. Created the fish, the world, all of it. And then Eve met a snake in a tree that convinced her to eat a fruit from the tree that she was not allowed to eat. She gives this fruit to Adam and he eats as well. And then it says that God entered the garden and wanted to talk with Adam and Eve. And then this portion is said. Adam answered, I heard you were in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. So I hid. And God said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat? The man said, the woman you put here with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree and I ate it. From this story, I think we have the origin of fear, of hiding and blaming. The fear from listening to God, the fear of people, the hiding away our true selves or whatever we are. We try to hide ourselves, our shame. And blame. It's not my fault, it's all the others, it's God's fault. And maybe you know all these feelings. Maybe one, hiding, of having fear of not being approved by other people, or blaming other people is a thing that you know really well in your life. And here in the mat, we want to try to let go of all these things. So take an inhale and exhale out loud. And maybe one or two times more. And you can take your hands out to the side and inhale. Lift your arms up towards the sky. And exhale, palms face down. And let your hands reach down. So maybe inhale, receiving. Exhale and letting go of whatever fear, blame, hiding that you know of. Let your hands reach the floor and move around, finding child's pose. Get some distance in between your feet, or your knees, and let your hip move back, forehead on the ground. This is a position of hiding, I would say, but also a position of being safe. But here we try to move into a more open pose. So move up to all fours, maybe gather your knees a little bit, and then sway down, arch your back, lift up your chest, and open up. Letting your hip, sitting bone move back towards your heels. If you can't do this, just find a comfortable seated position. And let your hands come out to the side and lift them up towards the sky, opening up, sitting tall, letting go. God is not angry at you. There's a consequence of sin, and we all experience that in our everyday life. But through Jesus Christ, we are free. Put your hands down on the mat and find downward facing dog. And maybe you paddle your feet a little bit. If you have lived with fear for a long time, you almost can't imagine what it's like to live without it. But I feel like I need to tell myself, that it's possible to live without fear. It is. Especially fear of man, or people in general. Move your feet to the front end of your mat and move into your forward fold. You can bend your knees if you like. Then gather your toes on your knees and find chair. So sink as low as you need today, navel in, arms reach up, and breathe deeply. Hucking in knees and thighs. And find your right hand. Let your right hand glide on your left thigh and move out to the side for a twist. Take a look at your knee. Try not to let them glide too much away from each other. Standing here, you might start to shake a little bit from tiredness. But take a few more deep breaths. And let your fingers reach the floor, come into your forward fold. Try to straighten your legs. Maybe move a little bit from your heels to the front end of your toes. And sink low again into chair pose. Isn't it interesting that reading the Genesis, I don't know how many years ago that the story is supposed to be from, but that hiding, I was naked, the feeling of being ashamed without wearing clothes, that we all know that kind of feeling, or that feeling of blaming. Not only did Adam blame Eve, he also said to God, "The woman you put by my side." It's always the others. Isn't that just interesting? That is just a kind of a ground fear or ground thing in all of us. Move into a twist. This time the other side, the left hand or arm on the outer edge of your right thigh. Look down or up. One more big breath. And let go. Step your feet back into down dog and really try to get those heels low down. So stretch the hamstrings, stretch your back.
Engage your root lock as you lift up right leg and just stay here. Right leg lifted, feet or heel, ankle flexed. And then bend your knee and slowly, taking your time, take your knees underneath your belly and move your foot to the front end of the mat. Let your hip sink low. Stay here for a breath. And maybe come up to your fingertips. Now you can definitely use a block if you happen to have one. Maybe one of each side to lift and elevate your chest a little bit higher. Looking up and letting your hips sink a little bit lower. Stretch out that back leg. Then pivot the back foot, warrior two. The back foot aligned with the short end of the mat or a little bit further to the front. And open up your hip. Bend the front knee so that the knee and ankle are above each other, arms out. Look towards the front hand and breathe. And as you start to feel tension here in your thigh, you might really exhale deeply. Because sometimes when we have tension in our body, we have the option of letting go. And maybe this is a place where you can let go of your fear of hurting or your fear of being in pain. The fear of people, the fear of not being approved or good enough. One last big inhale. Awesome. Take both hands down, frame the foot, and lift the back heel. Plant the back or put the back foot a little bit closer to the front foot, and then lift up left leg. Lift up your chest, and maybe you use your block just to keep your balance here. Or maybe you take your arms in prayer pose in front of your chest. Make space in between your shoulders. Look down. Both fingers reach the floor again. Step it back into downward facing dog. Awesome. Taking the left leg up and move it back again. Hips closed. Foot flexed. Both legs as straight as possible. And your fingers reach into the mats. Small micro bend in the elbows and push your shoulders away from your ears, a little bit down towards your hip. Then bend your knee and again very slowly take it underneath your belly. Lift the back heel off the floor and maybe you lift up your fingers here on the left side so that the foot can reach. Hip width apart with the feet. Lift back heel as high as you can. Let your hips sink low, and again, option of using your blocks to elevate your chest a little bit. Maybe you go for the higher length. So sink your hip low. Lift up your chest. Space again for breathing so that your shoulders are turned a little bit back. Belly breath, big belly on your inhale. Especially if you're furious of not looking the right way. Remove the block, turn the back foot around, warrior two. Again, heels somewhat aligned. Lift up however long distance you want in between your feet or your heels. Straighten out your arms. Look to the front hand. You know, more than 80 times at least, the Bible says somewhere, fear not. And when things are repeated a lot in general in the Bible, it's because we need to listen. So fear not, well, that's easy. Well, okay, then I won't be afraid. It doesn't work like that, right? But I think if we encounter God's love, if we really get it from our head down into our hearts, it's easy to let go of that fear. If it's approval of other people, the only approval you need is God's, and He already approves. You are worthy through Jesus Christ. Try to inhale that. I am worthy. I am approved. Frame the foot. Last pose here, pivot the back heel off the mat and jump the back foot a little bit closer so it's easier to lean forward. And this time, right leg lifts up, closed hip, flexed foot. Again, trying to let go of the floor if you want. Just hold the block if that's easier. Navel in. Lots of more movements in the ankle. And fingers down on the floor. Move into child's pose again. Distance in between the knees. And maybe you let your palms reach up for an open pose and listen to what is written in Isaiah. And it's not just for that guy, it's also for us. It says, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. And listen again. Fear not. Why? Because I have redeemed you, God says. I have set you free. I can set you free. I have called you by name. I know you is what this verse or this sentence means. You only call people by name if you know them. God knows us. You are mine, not a possession, but more like, I love you. You and I belong together. So what are we going to do with approval of people? Nothing. Whatever people think, it's temporary. What God thinks is eternal. Let your fingers reach the mat and move into all fours. You can always fold your mat. I like doing that for the sake of my knees. Navel in. And then put out your right leg all the way back. Cross it above or on top of left knee. Move the back foot around and move into a kind of a side stretch all the way to the side. Pinky fingers are on top. Lift. Knee and hip somewhat above each other. And come down on all fours, gently move to the other side, doing exactly what we did before. This time left leg moves out, cross it above on top, move the back foot there, Calves around. Lift up left arm and sway it above your head so that arm and ear are somewhat aligned. Lift your hip up for a huge, nice side stretch. And let go. Sit down on your mat with your feet out to each side, toes pointing up. And this time we're gonna reach for big toe here with our fingers. If you can't take a hold of your toes, you can either sit on your block or just take a hold of your shin here. But if you can, take a hold of your big toes, take your elbows back. So pointing or moving your toes a little bit out, back away from you so you don't have your feet pointing in. Relaxing legs and thighs as you lean forward somewhat. So what are you gonna tell yourself when fear enters? One of my fears is that something happens with my kids. If you're a mom or a dad, you might know that one. All right, let go. So when that fear sometimes enters my mind, I try to exhale and remind myself that it's in God's hands. And my fear is not gonna rule my life. Or my kids' life, for that matter. Being reasonable, being clever, oh yes, but not, how you say it, raise your kid out of fear, or kids. Reverse pigeon, take your right leg out to the side, right ankle on your left knee there, pull your left thigh in. If you can reach with your right elbow and pull your right knee further out, welcome to do that. And let go. Switch legs. So whenever fear comes, maybe you read that verse, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I call you by name, you are mine." If we're not hiding, I know that we don't need to hide, and we don't need to blame other people. We can truly live in freedom, in the freedom that God has called us to live. And we might encounter it momentarily here in our lives right now, but I think in heaven for eternity. But let us prepare for that right now. Living without fear is so much better than living in fear. Letting go of those legs, maybe hugging your knees. And I want to keep this flow or slow, it's called yoga, a bit brief. So if you want to stay down on your mat for a longer time, please do so. Maybe you press pause on the recording. But if not, come down, feet out to the side, hands on the ground. Shoulders away from your ears, and close your eyes. And close them gently. Open your jaws a little bit. There is space for you to breathe. And as you lay down there resting, listen again. Sometimes, especially when it comes to fear, we need to hear verses repeated time and time again. So open up your heart. Maybe just picture that you open the doors of your heart for God's voice right now. Try to picture that. And picture God speaking directly to your heart, saying, "My child, fear not. Don't be afraid. For I have redeemed you. I have set you free. Live in that freedom." I have called you by name. Dear child, I know you. Not just the pretty version of you, the smiles. I know the tears. I know the shame. But you don't need to hide. I want relation with you, my child. You are mine. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, and you are mine. And working with fear is always irrational. Can't argue with fear necessarily. It's an emotion or feeling. So you don't have to understand what is just happening right now. Trust that God, step by step, will take you by the hand and walk me out of fear, day by day. Please stay on your mat if you like. From my heart to your heart, thank you so much for tuning in. And I really pray that God's healing and blessing and peace will be in your heart. Thank you.